life changes as you get older, and priorities that were once there, even though they're still important, are not really the priorities that I used to have. And
While he was winning Grand Slams, Jimmy Connors was also dealing with some serious relationship drama. His relationship with his ex-girlfriend was a whirlwind of controversy and heartbreak. Get ready for the shocking truth. Jimmy Connors was born in Belleville, Illinois, just across the river from St. Louis. They even nicknamed him the Belleville Basher in the tennis world. Can you imagine starting to play tennis at age 4? That's what Jimmy did, with his mom Gloria coaching him all the way. By the time he was 8, he was already playing in national championships. When he was 16, Jimmy and Gloria moved to Southern California, where he trained with the famous Pancho Segura. And get this, during his freshman year at UCLA, he won the NCAA Singles Championship. Talk about making an impact early on. He went pro in 1971 and won his first big tournament in Roanoke, Virginia. His playing style was something else, hitting the ball super flat and fierce, unlike the topspin pros of today. People said his shots were like torpedoes flying straight and low over the net. One thing that set him apart was his Wilson T2000 racket, made of steel when everyone else was using wood. It boosted his game big time, from his powerful backhand to his killer serve. Even his rival John McEnroe admitted he was way better at volleying than people gave him credit for. He had an incredibly successful career, but behind all that glitz and power, his personal life was a mess. Before we get into all the juicy details, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for the latest sports updates from yours truly. So here's where it all began. Connors, the guy known for his wild behavior on the tennis court, claims he turned on the charm when he first talked to Chris Evert. It was June 1972, and they were having lunch at the Queen's Club during the pre-Wimbledon tournament. Evert was just 17, with her watchful mom Colette by her side. But Jimmy, always confident, went right up and sat next to her. By the end of that week, they had their first date. They went out to the Playboy Club in London. But Jimmy only had eyes for Chris, not the beautiful women or the blackjack tables. He shares all about it in his tell-all memoir, The Outsider. Imagine this. At the 1974 Wimbledon ball, following tradition, the men's and women's singles champions paired up for the opening dance. The band played The Girl That I Marry for Jimmy Connors and Chris Evert, who were already engaged at that point. How wholesome is that? Even though Chris was just 19, they had planned to get married in November. But suddenly, the wedding was called off and no one knew why, until now. In Connors' memoirs, he spills the tea. He claims they were both unfaithful and hints, without outright saying it, that Chris got pregnant and had an abortion against his wishes shortly before their planned wedding. He writes about how an issue arose from youthful passion, and they had to make a decision as a couple. But Connors felt that Chris, who was getting her way in their long-distance relationship, made the decision alone. He was staying in an apartment in Los Angeles with his friend and fellow tennis rebel Ilya Nastasi when Chris called to say she was coming to LA to take care of that issue. Connors was ready to take responsibility and let things happen naturally. But Chris, coming from a strict Catholic background and thinking about her future, had already made up her mind that the timing was bad. She asked him to handle the details, to which he responded with apparent bitterness. "Well, thanks for letting me know. Since I don't have any say in the matter, I guess I'm just here to help." Even though Connors wasn't so upset that he skipped going out that evening, he makes it clear that this event led to the end of their relationship. When he called Evert later that night to say he thought they were too young to get married, she didn't hesitate. According to Connors, she said, "Okay, if that's what you think. I've got a match tomorrow. Not a problem." Connors admits that Evert remembers it differently, saying they had a 6-hour conversation about breaking up. "I was sad," he confides. "I loved her, and we both put a lot of effort into our relationship. But the same question kept coming up. Can two number ones exist in the same family?" He concluded that they couldn't. Heartbreaking, am I right? And to think this was all going down behind the scenes when they were winning Grand Slam titles. Evert, who won 18 Grand Slam titles compared to Connors' 8, later said their marriage would have been a disaster. They were too young, too inexperienced, and too similar. There were a lot of sparks, believe me, but compatibility, you kill each other, she said a decade later. Her father and coach, Jim, also mentioned that lucrative financial opportunities got in the way of them settling down together. However, there was never any mention of a pregnancy. Any doubts about what Connors was referring to were cleared up when Evert responded with a short but damning statement. She said he had written about a time in our relationship that was very personal and emotionally painful, and that she was extremely disappointed he made it public without her knowledge. Apart from tweeting her thanks to fans for their support, Evert has remained silent on the matter. Connors hasn't apologized. That was a part of my life, and a very big part of my life at the time, he said. It was not labored on, and it was said as a matter of fact. Isn't it wild how different people can remember the same event so differently? What do you think about sharing personal details from past relationships publicly? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Everett's few words about the situation fit well with her usual approach. A friend said, "The last thing Chris wants to talk about nowadays is this sort of thing," but she felt very angry that Jimmy did this without even warning her. But Chris will readily admit that she's made mistakes in the past. Most people agree that it was pretty unchivalrous of Connors to reveal such personal details without her consent. Critics have jumped on Everett's outrage and Connors' harsh remarks about other players in his memoirs, saying it all just shows he's still a bit of a jerk. Was their relationship ever a fairy tale? Connors insists it wasn't. He says it was always on her terms. With the long periods apart due to their tennis schedules, Connors admits he was unfaithful several times during their 2 years together. However, he adds that America's sweetheart was no angel either. In the tight-knit tennis world, he suggests, it's hard to keep secrets. He claims he was always the one flying out to meet her wherever she was playing. Even then, their managers would often make sure they stayed in separate hotel rooms to get some sleep. He also says that Evert, obsessed with tennis, would cut short his love of partying by wanting to go home early. On the court, Evert expected Connors to practice tennis with her, even though he needed to practice against men. And when he watched her compete, she would glare at him if he even glanced away from the game. Connors says her mood swings could drive anyone crazy, and while he was very supportive, she treated him like a house husband. He admits he's always been old school when it comes to settling down and having a family. He expected to be the main breadwinner, meaning Evert would have had to make sacrifices in her tennis career. But things became even more interesting when his life got tangled with Evert's again after their breakup, and that too in the most unexpected way. He revealed in his memoir, "I had a new girlfriend who just happened to live in the same apartment building as Chrissy, right down the street from my place. Yikes," he added. "That was interesting. I still wanted to keep my private life private, so there was a lot of sneaking around." Connors admitted, "I really didn't want to bump into Chrissy. It would have been awkward for both of us." So that's the latest scoop on Jimmy Connors. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to check out our latest video on Arthur Ashe. I'm sure you'll love it. He burst onto the scene with a booming serve and a forehand that could melt steel. Mark Philippoussi, the charismatic Scud stud, seemed destined for tennis greatness. But the path to the top was littered with distractions, injuries, a high-profile social life, and the relentless pressure of expectations threatened to derail his promising career. Today, we explore the untold story of a player whose immense talent was often overshadowed by the headlines. The tennis world first caught a glimpse of Mark Philippoussi's prodigious talent in his junior years. His powerful serve, capable of reaching blistering speeds, and his aggressive baseline game set him apart from his peers. It wasn't long before he transitioned to the professional circuit, where his early success hinted at a future filled with Grand Slam titles and accolades. Philippoussis' game was a spectacle to behold. His booming serve, aptly nicknamed the Scud, left opponents scrambling and often demoralized. His powerful ground strokes, particularly his ferocious forehand, could penetrate even the most resolute defenses. He possessed the raw talent and physical attributes to dominate the sport. However, as Philippoussis' star rose, so did the media's fascination with his off-court persona. His striking good looks, coupled with his outgoing personality, made him a magnet for attention. The tabloids dubbed him the Scud Stud, a moniker that captured both his on-court firepower and his off-court charisma. He became a fixture in gossip columns, his romantic relationships and social exploits often overshadowing his tennis achievements. The Scud Stud persona, while initially boosting Philippoussis' popularity, ultimately proved to be a double-edged sword. It brought him fame and lucrative endorsements, but it also created distractions and fueled expectations that he struggled to live up to. The constant media scrutiny and the pressure to maintain his image took a toll on his focus and dedication to the sport. While Philippoussis continued to achieve notable victories, his inconsistency and susceptibility to injuries raised questions about his commitment. The Scud Stud persona, once a symbol of his youthful exuberance, gradually became a burden, a reminder of the untapped potential that seemed to be slipping away. The early promise of a Grand Slam champion was slowly overshadowed by the allure of the celebrity lifestyle, leaving many to wonder what could have been had Philippoussis prioritized his tennis career above all else. The pinnacle of Mark Philippoussis' career was undoubtedly his appearance in the 2003 Wimbledon final, a moment that held the promise of fulfilling his Grand Slam dreams. However, this defining moment was preceded by two heart-wrenching near misses that left an indelible mark on his journey. In 1998, a young and fearless Philippoussis stormed into the U.S. Open final, his powerful serve and aggressive play captivating the New York crowd. He faced the legendary Pete Sampras, a 7-time Grand Slam champion at the peak of his powers. Philippoussis fought valiantly, but Sampras's experience and precision proved too much, and the Australian fell in straight sets. The loss was a bitter pill to swallow, a reminder of the fine line between triumph and heartbreak on the biggest stage. 5 years later, Philippoussis found himself on the cusp of glory once again, this time at the hallowed grounds of Wimbledon. He had navigated a challenging draw, his booming serve and newfound maturity carrying him to the final. The stage was set for a showdown with a rising star, Roger Federer. The match was a thrilling contest, showcasing Philippoussis' immense power and Federer's elegant shot-making. However, it was the Swiss maestro who ultimately prevailed, claiming his first Grand Slam title in straight sets. The Wimbledon final, while a painful defeat, also showcased Philippoussis' fighting spirit and resilience. He had pushed Federer to the limit, earning the respect of fans and pundits alike. But the loss also highlighted the elusive nature of Grand Slam success, the fine margins that separate champions from contenders. These near misses, the U.S. Open final and the Wimbledon final, became defining moments in Philippoussis' career. They served as both a source of pride and a reminder of what could have been. They fueled the debate about his unfulfilled potential, leaving fans and commentators to ponder whether he could have achieved even greater heights had circumstances been different. The Grand Slam near misses, particularly the Wimbledon final, remain etched in the memories of tennis enthusiasts, a bittersweet chapter in the story of a player who tantalized with his talent but ultimately fell short of the ultimate prize. Throughout his career, Mark Philippoussis battled a relentless series of injuries that hampered his progress and disrupted his rhythm. Knee problems, shoulder ailments, and various other physical setbacks plagued him, forcing him to withdraw from tournaments and spend countless hours in rehabilitation. These injuries not only impacted his physical well-being, but also took a toll on his mental state, leading to frustration and a loss of confidence. The constant struggle to regain fitness and form made it difficult for Philippoussis to maintain consistency. hindering his ability to climb the rankings and fulfill his immense potential. Mark Philippoussis' off-court life was often as captivating as his on-court exploits, but it also became a source of controversy and distraction that arguably hindered his tennis career. The scud-stud persona, fueled by his good looks and charismatic personality, attracted significant media attention and opened doors to a glamorous world of celebrity and high-profile relationships. Philippoussis' dating life became tabloid fodder, with his romantic liaisons with models, actresses, and pop stars making headlines around the world. He was often spotted at parties, fashion shows, and red carpet events, living a life more akin to a Hollywood celebrity than a professional athlete. While this playboy lifestyle brought him fame and fortune, it also raised concerns about his priorities and commitment to tennis. Critics argued that his focus was divided, that the allure of the social scene was detracting from his training and preparation. The constant media scrutiny and the pressure to maintain his image added another layer of complexity to his already challenging career. The impact of these off-court distractions was evident in Philippoussis' inconsistent performances. He struggled to maintain a consistent training regimen and often appeared mentally fatigued during matches. His ranking fluctuated, and his inability to string together a series of impressive results fueled speculation that his priorities lay elsewhere. Despite the criticisms, Philippoussis remained unapologetic about his lifestyle choices. He argued that he was simply enjoying his life and that his off-court activities didn't necessarily impact his tennis. However, the reality was that his talent and potential were often overshadowed by the headlines about his personal life. The Playboy label, once a source of amusement, gradually became a burden, a reminder of the missed opportunities and the unfulfilled promise. It's impossible to say definitively whether Philippoussis would have achieved greater success had he adopted a more disciplined approach. But his story serves as a cautionary tale about the perils of fame and the importance of maintaining focus in a demanding sport like tennis. Mark Philippoussis' career is a poignant reminder of unfulfilled potential. Blessed with prodigious talent and a game tailor-made for success, he tantalized fans with glimpses of greatness, but ultimately fell short of the lofty expectations placed upon him. His 2 Grand Slam final appearances, while commendable achievements, also serve as reminders of the titles that eluded him. Injuries, inconsistency, and the distractions of his off-court life all played a role in preventing Philippoussis from reaching his full potential. He will forever be remembered as a player who could have been so much more, a what-if story that leaves fans and pundits pondering the possibilities. Despite the unfulfilled potential, Philippoussis' legacy is not entirely defined by his shortcomings. He remains an iconic figure in Australian tennis, his powerful serve and aggressive style inspiring a generation of players. His Davis Cup victories and memorable Grand Slam runs will always hold a special place in the hearts of Australian fans. Moreover, his story serves as a valuable lesson for aspiring athletes. It highlights the importance of dedication, focus, and resilience in the face of adversity. Philippoussis' career, while marked by missed opportunities, also showcases the human side of professional sports, reminding us that even the most talented individuals can struggle to navigate the complexities of fame and expectation. Mark Philippoussis, a player whose career was a roller coaster of highs and lows, triumphs and tribulations. Do you think he could have achieved more? Was his talent truly squandered? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's spark a conversation about this enigmatic figure in Australian tennis. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more captivating tennis stories.
And that's an area that we really have got to attend to at the very young age. Youngsters learn very rapidly up to the age of 12. Very difficult to make major technical changes after the age of 12. So that's the age that we've got to really get to.
Tennis is brutal on the body. Just ask Mark Cox. This British tennis legend had an incredible career, but it wasn't without its fair share of pain. With injuries, controversies, and the pressure of being known, Cox's life was nothing short of a movie script. Let's get into it. Before Andy Murray clinched Wimbledon in 2013, breaking a 77-year drought for British men, there was a lesser-known but dedicated player, Mark Cox from Leicester. He didn't have the intense spotlight like Tim Henman or others, but he still managed to grab attention by making it to the round of 16 at Wimbledon 3 times from 1968 to 1979. He reached the world's top 15 in 1977, and snagged 10 singles titles during his career. His buddy Richard Tutt always talks about how down-to-earth Cox is, despite his achievements. For Cox, tennis wasn't about fame or money. It was all about the love of the game and representing his country at prestigious tournaments like Wimbledon and the Davis Cup. Now retired, Cox spent some time as a tennis commentator and still plays in senior tournaments. He sees tennis as a sport you can enjoy for a lifetime. It's amazing to see folks my age still hitting the courts, having fun, and staying active, he says. For Cox, tennis has been more than just a sport. It's been a lifelong passion that's brought joy and a sense of achievement. But who says a star is made without controversies? Even though he was, and still is, a legend, he too had a few scandals and difficulties along the way. But before we get into them, make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks. Mark Cox mostly kept out of trouble during his career. However, he did find himself in the spotlight over a controversy involving another tennis coach, Claire Light, in 2007. Claire was accused of sexually assaulting a 13-year-old girl she was coaching. Mark had previously worked with her and knew her coaching style, so he provided a character reference during her trial. He said he had always found her to be professional and hadn't seen any inappropriate behavior or bullying. Unfortunately, Claire was eventually found guilty. Even though Mark wasn't directly involved, his connection to the case and his decision to vouch for Claire raised a few eyebrows. Aside from this incident, Mark's tennis career was pretty standard, but like all athletes, he dealt with his share of injuries. In fact, he experienced several common tennis injuries over the years. Muscle strains and tears were a frequent issue for him, affecting his shoulders, back, legs, and arms, common areas of strain from the physical demands of the game. He also suffered from tennis elbow, a typical condition for tennis players due to the repetitive use of forearm muscles. Wrist injuries were another challenge, including sprains and even fractures, from the constant racket handling and ball striking. His knees took a beating too, from all the quick movements and changes in direction on the court, leading to various knee-related injuries. Through it all, Mark had access to excellent medical treatment and rehabilitation, which helped him manage these injuries and continue playing. Despite the physical challenges, his love for the game kept him going, highlighting the resilience and dedication needed to compete at a professional level in tennis. Sure, his controversies and injuries were fleeting, but don't I dare say his career was too? This man had an insane career, and it would be unfair to move on without giving you guys a glimpse of his grandeur. Mark Cox, who was born on July 5, 1943, is one of those classic tennis players from England who really made a mark back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. At his peak, in October 1977, he was ranked as the world's number 12 player, which was pretty impressive. Mark grew up going to Wigston Grammar School in Leicester and then moved on to Millfield School in Somerset. He didn't just play tennis, he hit the books pretty hard too. He ended up studying economics at Downing College, Cambridge, where he also joined the university's tennis club. His first big tournament was the Torquay Indoor Championship on November 3, 1958. Over his career, Mark bagged 22 singles titles and 3 doubles titles. He had some memorable moments on the court, like reaching the quarterfinals at the U.S. National Championships in 1966 and making it to the finals in Cincinnati in 1977. He also played a key role in Great Britain's Davis Cup team, helping them reach the finals in 1978 against the United States. One of his standout moments was beating Pancho Gonzalez at the British Hardcourt Championships in Bournemouth in May 1968. It was a tough match that lasted over 2 hours, and Mark won in 5 sets. He also had big wins against top seeds like Rod Laver at the 1971 Australian Open and Ken Rosewall at the 1972 U.S. Open. In his first Grand Slam match at the 1970 U.S. Open, he even defeated the future number 1, Jimmy Connors. Mark hung up his rackets in 1981, and interestingly, after his last title win in 1977, it took another 17 years before another British player clinched a top-level tour title. After retiring, Mark didn't just disappear from the tennis scene. He became a coach and shared his knowledge as a television commentator for the BBC. He's been pretty influential in shaping the next generation of players and sharing his passion for the game with viewers at home. Outside of tennis, Mark puts a lot of effort into charity work. He's a patron of CRY, Cardiac Risk in the Young, a charity that works to prevent young sudden cardiac deaths. He's also an ambassador for the Win Tennis Academy at Bisham. Nowadays, Mark lives with his wife Susie in London, enjoying life away from the professional tennis circuit. So Mark Cox's journey through tennis and beyond shows how deep his love for the sport runs, both as a player and in his life after professional tennis. Talking of his style of play, Mark Cox was a bit of a tennis wizard, especially with his left-handed play that threw off a lot of his right-handed competitors. He had this cool, calculated way of mixing up spins and speeds that kept everyone on their toes. Plus, he wasn't just glued to the baseline. He knew when to charge the net and shift gears, which made him a tough opponent in both singles and doubles. Mark's game really shone on grass, especially at Wimbledon, where he put up some memorable performances. But what's equally impressive is what he did after retiring from professional tennis. He didn't just fade away, but instead shifted gears to coaching and broadcasting, sharing his deep love and knowledge of the game with others. Beyond the game, Mark really stepped up his game with charity work, especially with organizations focused on preventing young, sudden cardiac deaths. It's a testament to his character, showing he's as much about giving back as he is about tennis. So yeah, Mark Cox wasn't just a fantastic player, he was also a standout guy off the court. His legacy in tennis is about more than just great shots and big wins. It's about passion, mentorship, and making a difference. He's definitely left a mark that goes beyond just scores and titles. Mark Cox's tennis career is a great example of how passion and resilience can help you succeed in a tough sport like tennis. He's faced everything from the intense pressure of playing at Wimbledon to serious injuries, but he never let that stop him. His love for tennis kept him going, even when controversies tried to knock him down. Even after he stopped playing professionally, Mark didn't leave the tennis world. He switched to coaching and commentating, using his experience to help and inspire the next generation of players. This shows his lifelong commitment to the sport and how he's helped make tennis better for everyone coming up after him. Dealing with injuries like muscle strains and tennis elbow is part of the game, and Mark's journey shows just how tough tennis can be on the body. His ability to handle these injuries and keep playing well shows how important good medical care and staying tough can be. Looking back at Mark Cox's career, you can see it's not just about what he achieved on the court. It's about his ongoing passion for tennis and how he's continued to impact the sport. His life is a powerful story of dedication, overcoming challenges, and a deep love for the game. If you're inspired by Mark's story or just want to learn more about the world of professional sports, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more stories like his. Also, if you're a big fan, make sure to check out our latest one on Lloyd. I'm sure you'll love it.
Yep, don't hold that against me. But yes, I was a Leon C, which was, a great place actually.
Lloyd wasn't just an ordinary tennis player. He was a tennis superstar, often dominating headlines with his record-breaking achievements. But his life off the court was equally headline-grabbing. His scandalous cheating controversies and shocking divorce from his wife left fans stunned. Lloyd is a British former professional tennis player. In July 1978, he reached an ATP world ranking of 21 and was the UK's #1 player in 1984 and 1985. Nowadays, he works as a tennis commentator. Lloyd made it to one Grand Slam singles final during his career, where he lost to Vitas Gerulaitis in the 1977 Australian Open. He also won 3 Grand Slam mixed doubles titles with Wendy Turnbull. Additionally, Lloyd was part of the Great Britain team that reached the final of the 1978 Davis Cup, but they lost to the United States. Lloyd was married to former top women's player Chris Evert. However, their relationship ended due to cheating scandals, which grabbed a lot of attention at the time. But before we tell you guys all the details, make sure to subscribe. In 1979, Lloyd married Chris Evert, the world #1 woman tennis player. After their marriage, she became known as Chris Evert Lloyd. The media dubbed them the golden couple of tennis, and they enjoyed several years of fame and attention. Their relationship had its ups and downs. They separated, briefly reconciled, but eventually divorced in 1987. Lloyd has mentioned that they were repeatedly unfaithful to each other during their marriage. He also hinted, without explicitly stating it, that his fiancée became pregnant by him and had an abortion against his wishes shortly before they were supposed to get married. In his book, Lloyd talks openly about Chris Evert's affair with Adam Faith, the former pop star who passed away in 2003. Lloyd felt it was important to mention this, saying not doing so would have been a cop-out. Despite the past issues, he holds no grudges against Evert. He acknowledges that by the time of the affair, they had already gone their separate ways. Reflecting on their past, Lloyd admits, "We were both young and probably did things we regret. Neither of us were angels." Because Evert had a higher profile career, the press sometimes jokingly referred to John Lloyd as Mr. Evert. Aware of how this affected his self-esteem, Evert tried to help by making sure they were always introduced as international tennis star John Lloyd and his wife Chris whenever they appeared together in the UK or Australia. Their biographer, Carol Thatcher, who was a friend of the couple, noted that this was as absurd as introducing her own parents as international business executive Dennis Thatcher and his wife Margaret. Despite their history, Lloyd and Evert remain friends. Recently, Lloyd reached out to her after she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. On May 10th, Evert announced she had completed her 6th and final round of chemotherapy. Fortunately, things are looking positive. Lloyd remains confident in Evert's strength, saying, "She's a champion. She'll fight anything. Champions like her find a way. It's in their DNA." Her mindset would have been, "I'm down a break in the third." Lloyd claimed that getting his second divorce actually saved his life. In 1987, Lloyd married Deborah Taylor Bellman, an American dancing teacher. Their marriage lasted for 30 years, ending in 2017. Together, they have 2 children, Aiden and Haley. Lloyd has shared that getting a divorce may have unintentionally saved his life. After his divorce, he moved to Florida, where he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Fortunately, the cancer was caught in time and treated successfully. When Lloyd was diagnosed with cancer, he wasn't particularly surprised, even though he had been otherwise healthy and showed no symptoms. "I always felt that sooner or later, something was going to happen to me," Lloyd explains. "I'd been so lucky up to that point, so when I got the call saying I had prostate cancer, I wasn't really shocked. I just figured, you can't keep winning on the roulette wheel forever." Today, Lloyd lives in Palm Beach, Florida, with his girlfriend, Svetlana Carroll. Svetlana is a Russian-born estate agent, and the two seem to be enjoying their life together. Despite all his ups and downs, his career was extraordinary.
Players, because you've got to be sharp right from the first point, because there's no time to warm up. Whoever starts off quickest is going to win the set.
In December 1977, Lloyd made history at the Australian Open by becoming the first British male tennis player in the Open era to reach a Grand Slam singles final. In an intense match, he faced America's Vitas Gerulaitis and fought hard but ultimately lost in 5 sets, with scores of 6-3, 7-6, 5-7, 3-6, 6-2. It was a remarkable achievement, and it took another 20 years before any other British player reached a Grand Slam final. That player was British-Canadian Greg Rusedski, who made it to the U.S. Open final in 1997. Lloyd also had a notable run at the U.S. Open in 1984, where he reached the quarterfinals. However, Wimbledon, his home tournament, was always a tough battleground for him. The furthest he got in singles play at Wimbledon was the 3rd round. Although Lloyd never secured a Grand Slam singles title, he found great success in mixed doubles. Partnering with Australia's Wendy Turnbull, Lloyd won 3 Grand Slam mixed doubles titles. Their first major victory came at the French Open in 1982. That same year, they made it to the mixed doubles final at Wimbledon, but finished as runners-up. However, Lloyd and Turnbull didn't let that setback stop them. They returned to Wimbledon with determination and went on to win the mixed doubles title there in both 1983 and 1984. These victories were significant highlights in Lloyd's career, showcasing his talent and resilience on the court. Lloyd reached his career-high singles ranking of world number 21 in 1978. In the final, Lloyd faced tough competition, losing in straight sets to Brian Gottfried and a young John McEnroe. Lloyd's dedication to the Davis Cup was remarkable. He represented the British team for 11 years. In doubles, Lloyd achieved a career-high ranking of world number 34 in 1986. As his playing career began to wind down, Lloyd didn't step away from tennis. Instead, he stayed deeply involved in the sport. He transitioned to coaching, sharing his expertise and experience with up-and-coming players. Additionally, Lloyd became a television commentator, offering insights and analysis on matches. He also remained active on the veterans circuit, continuing to play the game he loved. His post-playing career allowed him to stay connected to tennis and contribute to the sport in various meaningful ways. He then became a great captain. In 2006, Lloyd was appointed the captain of Great Britain's Davis Cup team, taking over from Jeremy Bates. His tenure started on a high note, with a series of victories that brought the team back into the world group. However, the retirement of key players Greg Rusetsky and Tim Henman in 2007 marked a turning point. Without their top talents, the team struggled and suffered 5 consecutive defeats, marking the worst run in their Davis Cup history. This led to their drop back down to the 3rd tier of the competition. Lloyd stepped down as coach in mid-2010. Since the 1990s, Lloyd has become a familiar voice as a commentator and analyst for the BBC's tennis coverage, especially during Wimbledon. He is well known for his trademark catchphrases, often using food and drink analogies to describe tennis shots. If a shot is too weak, he might say it was undercooked or needed more mustard. On the other hand, if a shot is overhit, he might describe it as overcooked, having too much juice or too much mustard. In addition to his work with the BBC, Lloyd also contributed to Sky Sports coverage of the 2009 U.S. Open. His colorful commentary and engaging style have made him a beloved figure in the world of broadcasting. That is it for this one, but if you happen to like tennis legends, make sure to check out our latest videos on our channel Tennis Icons. I'm sure you will love it.